Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I'm so excited that you're joining me today. It's a special episode because I'm going to be chatting about how I started wedding photography 8 years ago. So stay tuned and we'll get right into it. And for those of you that are new to my channel, I'm a fine art wedding photographer based in Toronto, Canada. And I do workshops, I do one-on-one mentoring sessions, I have online courses, so I'll make sure to link all of those things below. So I decided to share my story here today because I know that whenever I watch other photographers' stories, it always encourages me and motivates me in my journey. So I'm hopeful today that this video will encourage you, it'll stretch you, it'll challenge you, and help you to become successful in your business and also not be afraid of making mistakes. I think a lot of people struggle in their business because they struggle with so much fear, which actually stops them from doing things. And the only way we can become successful in our business is if we take those risks and let go of the fear. You do have to take risks, you have to step out in faith, and amazing results will come. You'll also have some failures, but I like to think of those as a part of my journey and also just investments into my business, because you always learn so much when you fail and it only pushes you farther to want to succeed. So anyways, I hope that this video is helpful for you guys and that you learn something new about me. So in 2010, I was in grade 10, I was 15 years old and I had just gotten my first DSLR for Christmas. From there on, I started taking pictures of friends. I really loved fashion and editorial, so I would actually go pick out their outfits. A lot of the time it was from Value Village, so I was usually thrift shopping the outfits. But I would get really creative with these shoots. I loved studio lights, so I actually bought a bunch of studio lights. I would take them on location. I'll show you guys some of the images here because they're pretty funny. And I just loved experimenting and trying new things. I wasn't even into the wedding world yet. I didn't even know about wedding photography. I really just enjoyed being creative and trying new things. So that's how I started. Then after a year or so into that, my mom's friend had contacted me about doing their engagement photos. I went ahead and did their engagement photos. From there, I photographed my first wedding in 2011, and it was in Florida. And so my mom actually came and she assisted me. She was the best assistant ever. Even when I was freaking out and super stressed out, she kept me calm and was just very supportive. And so that's kind of how I started with wedding photography, was doing that first wedding in Florida. And then when I came back, my mom had other friends that were getting married, and so I kind of just kept getting these weddings. They kept coming and I didn't want to say no to them, so I kept doing those weddings. And as I was shooting these weddings, I actually was still working at Harvey's, which is a fast food chain here in Canada. And so I was working there, and that's kind of how I was able to afford all my camera equipment, was I would just work there and then do my photography and spend all my money on equipment. And it was really good because I didn't buy anything else. I didn't eat out a lot. I didn't buy clothes much. I really invested all that money into my business at the time, even though it was just growing and it was still just a baby at the time. And then I remember after about 3 or 4 weddings, I said to my mom, I don't think I can do this anymore. I think this is it. This is way too much pressure for me, being 17 or 18 at the time and trying to run this full-blown business. And I remember her saying to me, just keep trying, just do a few more weddings, and if you don't like it, then you can stop. But I think that you'll really enjoy this if you keep going. And I even remember her saying this at different stages in my life as well. When it came to playing guitar when I was 10 years old, I remember I wanted to quit then, and then she kind of pushed me to keep going. And so she did the same thing at this point in my life. She said, just keep going, I'm sure you'll like it, but if not, then throw in the towel, maybe it's not for you. So with that advice, I kept going, I kept taking on more weddings, and eventually I started to get weddings that were really beautiful and that I enjoyed, and the couples were really sweet, and I kind of realized that this was my passion. This is what I loved doing, was capturing people's special day and doing romantic bride and groom portraits, and I loved that affirmation that I would get afterwards from the couple, telling me how much they love the photos and then seeing them posted all over Facebook. So that's really how I started, was just a few weddings when I was 17 years old, and it was my mom's friends. And then eventually I was able to do 5 a year, and then 10 a year, and then it really went up to 25 to 30 a year. Those first years were the hardest because I did have some clients that really challenged me. And one of the brides that I photographed her wedding, at the time I didn't have a family photo list. And so when we were doing their family photos, I actually forgot one of the most important photos, which was of her, her husband, and their daughter. So a family picture of just them three, and I completely forgot to get it. It was like a cold winter day as well, so I'm also not thinking about everything, but most importantly, we didn't have that family photo list, and so we were just going off the top of our head. So a few weeks later, after she received the photos, she asked me where this photo was, and she swears that we took it, that we got it, and that I'm just not giving it to her for whatever reason. What ended up happening was I photoshopped a photo where I just cut out people on the end so that it could just be them three in the photo. It still didn't look the best, but it was, you know, good enough. It was doable. But it became a little bit hard after that, just because I realized the expectations that people have for their wedding photos, and that you really can't make each person happy. Even as much as we try sometimes, as much as we're so sweet and thoughtful and go out of our way, some people will tend to find the negative and not be super happy. So I started to learn that that was a possibility. It scared me a little bit, but the clients that I did have that really loved me outweighed those small percentage of clients. Another client that I remember I had just finished her wedding that evening, and I was saying goodbye to them and just congratulations. You know, after a wedding day, when you finish, you kind of say bye to the bride and groom. And out of my excitement, this only being my 5th or 6th wedding ever, I said to her, "Oh, I'm so excited to start editing these. Hopefully I'll get these to you in 2 weeks." And when I left that wedding and left that night, I didn't really think about what I said. And in my head, I'm thinking, for sure, she's not gonna expect these photos in 2 weeks. That would just be crazy. And so I'm going through editing these pictures and spend 2 weeks. I get a message from her and she's asking for the photos. Long story short, ended up being a bit of a crazy scenario where she was upset that I had said that to her, that I had gotten her hopes up. And so I did a really fast turnaround and got the photos within those 2 weeks and just did like an overnight edit. And I even went out of my way 6 months later and sent her a canvas print in the mail, which kind of healed that relationship because it was still off between us. Anyways, there's been some situations where, yes, on my end, I could have said things differently or done things better, but some people do take things a little bit too far sometimes as well. As a business owner, we need to provide the best customer service because our business really does rely on referrals and word of mouth. Because if Instagram dies at the end of the day, you really need all those past clients to have good things to say about you. And that being said, again, sometimes you can't make every single client happy, but you should definitely be trying to go out of your way for every single client that you do have. So 2 years later, in 2012, I graduated from high school, and then I started my first year in university, which I went for photography. As I kept shooting weddings and going through school, I did a lot of second shooting during that time too, with one specific photographer in Niagara. And it was just super helpful seeing how he worked with his clients, and that gave me really good insight on how I could kind of fix my business and just my approach when I'm posing clients. So that was very helpful, and I definitely recommend shooting for other people in the beginning of your business as much as you can. As I kept growing my business through school and doing all my assignments at school and doing my wedding work, I did a ton of discounts and giveaways during that time. That's really the only way to grow your business in the beginning. So then in 2015, I picked up film for the first time. It was something that I had always thought about since I loved Jose Villa's work from the beginning, and Elizabeth Messina was a huge inspiration as well. So I finally decided to pick up film. I bought my first Pentax 645 camera, and I remember shooting it at a wedding in the summer of 2015. I got those images back so excited, thinking that they were gonna look amazing, and the film just magically made everything look perfect. And I was extremely disappointed when I got those images back. I remember they were super dark, they were really muddy looking, there wasn't that beautiful depth of field or those beautiful skin tones. And so I actually stopped shooting film for about, I think, 6 months because I was just so discouraged and I thought film wasn't for me. And so 6 months later, when I did pick it back up, I actually brought my film camera on a trip to Italy with me the next year. And I did a beautiful bridal shoot while I was there, and I took lots and lots of film. And I remember coming back and seeing those images and being so excited and over the moon, realizing that I actually did love film and that I could create some really beautiful work. And the thing with film that I learned in the beginning is that you really need to overexpose it, because film can retain a lot of those highlights, but as soon as you start underexposing film, it gets really dark, it gets muddy, it just doesn't have as much flexibility when you underexpose it. So as soon as I started overexposing my film, just by 1 or 2 stops, I started getting the results that I really wanted, and it made me super excited. So from there, I think I only shot a few more sessions on my Pentax, and then I went ahead and bought a Contax, which at the time, they were only like $2,800 Canadian, and now they're like $5,000. After I bought a Contax that summer, I actually won a free seat to a workshop in Tuscany with Donnie Zavala, and that was crazy. I remember chatting with him on the phone a month prior to the workshop. At this point, he wasn't doing a giveaway, so I was just chatting about the possibility of being able to go. And I remember the flights and everything were just so expensive, plus the workshop itself. So I decided, you know, maybe I should wait this out. I won't go to a workshop yet. I'll wait for the next one, kind of thing. And then I remember it was only a few weeks before the workshop, and then he had posted on his Instagram a giveaway. And I remember looking at the giveaway thinking, there's no point in entering, probably not gonna win. You know, I never win anything. What would be the odds of winning this on social media? And so the last day there was to enter the giveaway, I really felt in my heart, I really felt God telling me that I needed to enter. And so I went ahead and entered, not thinking anything. And then at 8 p.m. that night, he drew the winner. And instantly I looked at my phone, realizing that I was gonna win this. I just had that feeling, I don't know how to explain it. And so as soon as it turned 8 p.m., my name came up, he had tagged me, that I'd won this giveaway. So a few weeks later, I flew to Tuscany, met some amazing people, had a great time, shot only film at that workshop. I think I shot maybe 50 or 60 rolls during that trip, and I didn't touch my digital at all. And that was kind of my goal, was to push myself out of my comfort zone, only shoot film, and not touch my digital. And I think that really helped me get over my fear of film and fear of shooting movement on film, and it really just got me more confident with shooting film, which is what I needed at the time. So fast forward there, I began making some blog posts, and I wrote a blog post about how I would love to do a destination wedding, whether it's in Paris or anywhere in Europe, that I really wanted to travel and that I was offering discounts for these destination weddings. And my mom would always share, and she still does, share every single one of my posts on her Facebook. And so she shared this post about me wanting to do a destination wedding and offering a discount for anybody that reached out. And sure enough, one of her friends actually reached out to me, and I booked this gorgeous elopement in Paris that October. So that fall, late fall, I went to Paris and did their elopement. And so it was just pretty crazy, the fact that, you know, I wrote a blog post on this, and then to actually get to go to Paris and for this dream to happen, it just shows you how we can manifest these things with our words and obviously by prayer. And I believe that God does want us to believe for bigger things, and he will do those things for us. While I was in Paris, I also reached out to a couple. I found a couple that was living there, that the girl was from Toronto originally, and I actually shot a couple session for them. So whenever I travel, I always try to make a whole trip out of it. So rather than just doing the one shoot, I'll set up maybe 2 or 3 or 4 shoots. And so that way I come back with a lot more content. And I think that that's really worked out well, not even just having more content, but also just connecting with more people in that area, which is always beneficial in the long run, having those connections. So at this point, I was shooting between 25 and 30 weddings for a few years there, which got really challenging, and I started realizing that if I wanted to do this long term, that I really needed to up my prices and scale back on the amount of weddings, because burnout is a real thing, and it definitely happens if you take on too much work. I started not really having a summer, so every weekend I was working, and then during the week you're editing, so it really didn't feel like I was getting a summer, and that's kind of when I realized that I needed to scale back. And so what you need to do is just slowly start upping your prices every year or every few months, just depending on how much demand there is for you, and just start slowly upping your prices so that way you can get to a point where even if you're taking 5 less weddings, it will make a huge difference and take a load off. So always look for ways that you can scale back and just increase your prices little by little. In 2017, I shot some of my favorite weddings, which were ones at Kurt's Orchard. I shot one in a backyard, but it was like a beautiful backyard with a tent wedding, and I shot lots and lots of film at these weddings, which really helped me just become more confident with my skills and also gave me a lot more for my portfolio. In 2017, I also did my very first workshop, which was on the Oregon coast. And I remember planning for this workshop, and it was only 2 months that we had to plan everything. And I was booking the flights, I was booking the Airbnb, I was doing all these things and not really knowing if anyone was gonna sign up yet. So I think we only had one person signed up, and I went ahead and booked everything. And I was really praying and just stepping out in faith and believing that this is what God wanted me to do. And so I booked this whole thing. It was an amazing, amazing workshop, met so many people from around the world, and we all stayed in this beautiful Airbnb, which is like 5 minutes from the beach. And so out of that workshop, I walked away with amazing connections with vendors and with other photographers, and also beautiful images for my portfolio as well. So with that workshop, I think I lost $3,000 or $5,000, but the amazing thing that came out of it was years later, one of the attendees actually had me come and photograph her wedding in Big Sur. And so that actually happened this past March, where I went to California, I photographed her elopement, and I never would have had that connection, never would photograph that wedding probably if we hadn't have met at that workshop. And so even though sometimes it feels like, oh, we wasted a bunch of money, or it didn't turn out how we wanted it to turn out, or it just seems like maybe we did the wrong thing, I think everything in life is always a learning lesson. And I think even those connections that you make are more important than any investment that you could make. It's really about the people that you meet in your life, just making those strong connections and those friendships. And then in 2018, I actually photographed my first wedding in Italy by myself. And so that was a bit of a crazy experience, just traveling there and photographing it without having an assistant or really having anyone to roll my film or do any of that. But it was a really great experience because it pushed me out of my comfort zone, and again was great to add to my portfolio. And I think what even booked me that wedding was having been to Italy several times before, built that trust with the client. And that's the thing, you're gonna do a lot of traveling beforehand before you start booking clients in those areas. So I traveled to Italy like 4 or 5 times before I actually booked a wedding there. And that's where it is in most cases. You're not gonna book a wedding to a place that you haven't traveled, unless they are close friends or something that are just bringing you along. But for the most part, you need to invest in your portfolio so that you can get those weddings in those destinations. And then in 2018, I also got married, June 10th, 2018. I got married to my best friend. And I think after my own wedding, it really made me realize what a bride wants out of her wedding day and the type of experience that she wants from her photographer. So that really helped me just understand, you know, brides aren't looking for just a bunch of beautiful photos. A lot of the times my favorite photos were the ones that weren't technically good. Maybe they were soft focus, or the lighting wasn't the best, but it was a really special moment between two people that mattered to me. So whether that was my husband and my dad hugging after the ceremony, or my mom watching our first dance, these type of shots were my favorite. And when I look back, those are the memories that are gonna matter to me. It's not gonna matter to me what my dress and my shoes and all of that look like perfectly styled. It really is about capturing those moments for your couples. And so I was really grateful that my eyes were kind of open after my own wedding and helped me become a better photographer as well. A few months later in the fall, I hosted my second workshop, which was at Graydon Hall Manor. And so that workshop completely filled up. We had an amazing turnout. I actually profited off after that one. So even though my first one in Oregon wasn't profitable, I mean, I learned so much from it. So that way this one could actually profit. And the thing is that as you do these workshops, you learn how much you need to budget for, how much things are going to cost. And so it does take a few workshops to start making money. And even then, there's still times where you don't make money or you just break even. In December, I hosted my third workshop, which was a studio workshop in Toronto. And that was a really beautiful one as well. And then in 2019, which was last year, it was probably one of my most crazy years yet. I launched 2 online courses, one for a full wedding day, and the second one was all about shooting film indoors. And so I launched those 2 courses, and then I also did 4 workshops. And now this was a great learning experience, doing 4 workshops and planning 4 workshops in a full year. But it was definitely a struggle, and there were a lot of ups and downs on the way. So I hosted one in February, I hosted one in Niagara in May, and then I hosted one in Vancouver in June, and then I hosted another one in France in October. So a variety of locations. If they were all local, then it would be a lot different, but it definitely made it challenging with planning the one in France and Vancouver and finding vendors that would come on board. My Vancouver one didn't go exactly as planned, and I actually ended up losing about $6,000 or so from that workshop. And it just didn't go exactly how we had imagined. Just things with the vendors fell apart, vendors not getting back to us, just a lot of scenarios that are kind of out of your control and there's nothing you can do, but they kind of bring you down in the moment. And so I remember leaving that workshop, coming back to Ontario, and thinking to myself if workshops were what I wanted to do anymore. I felt like I had failed. I remember being like depressed for a few days, and I remember even having nightmares for the next few months, especially because we still were planning our France workshop, which was happening later that year. So it took a lot of time to recover mentally from that workshop and just encourage myself and tell myself that I could do this again and that I would make it so much better. And so by the time the France workshop came around, I really felt encouraged, and I felt like it was going to be so much better already. And believe it or not, that was one of my favorite workshops to date. Even though we had a little bit of rain and the first day didn't go so well, we made amazing connections. Everybody got along so well. Just so many amazing friendships were made at that workshop, and we talked about God, and we just had amazing conversations. And then on the last day, we had beautiful sunshine, and we got some really amazing photos from that workshop. So it ended up being my favorite workshop yet. Probably the hardest one to plan to date, with planning the models and the dress and just so many crazy stories that I could go into with things that went wrong. But I kept my calm the whole time. I made sure that it was all about the experience. It wasn't so much about them just coming to a workshop and getting beautiful photos, but it was really about them just having an amazing experience where they felt connected to everyone and they felt valued and they just really had a good time. So anyways, I left that workshop realizing that workshops are still what I want to do. I love teaching and I need to do it more. And then now fast forward to this year, I have 2 workshops planned. One that I've already done, which was in February, and then I have another one planned for June, which is in Toronto. I'm hoping to add more to the list, so stay tuned because I do want to do a fall one. And then I also went to Hybrid Co, which was in March, and photographed a beautiful wedding in Big Sur, which I talked about earlier, and I shot all film, which really had been a dream of mine for a few years now, and I didn't know if I could do it, but thankfully I had an amazing assistant / second photographer, so I was able to shoot probably 95% film with only a few digitals during the ceremony. And it was just so exhilarating. The feeling of not having to look at the back of my digital camera, not worrying about how the images were turning out. It was really just a beautiful process of trusting myself, you know, shooting different film stocks and just getting creative. So I really enjoyed that, and I'm hoping that I can get more weddings like that in the future. So we will see what happens. What was also cool about my recent trip to California was that I had 3 other shoots while I was there besides the wedding, and I got paid for each one of those shoots. And to give you guys a little bit of background, all the trips that I had done prior to this, all the years that I spent traveling, it was very rare that I ever got paid for any of my shoots, especially the weddings. It was mainly just them paying for my travel and accommodations. And so this time around, literally every couple had paid for their shoots. They had reached out to me prior to coming to book these shoots. And it was such a good feeling knowing that I had couples wanting to pay for me, knowing that all those years of investing into my own travel and investing into my own shoots was starting to pay off, and couples were starting to notice me. And so that's the thing with these destination places and wanting to travel, is we do have to set up our own shoots so that way our portfolio can show off those places. And right now there's a lot going on with the virus and everything, and I've had some clients reschedule, had both my April weddings rescheduled to later dates this year and actually one date for next year. So it's been a little bit crazy, but at the same time, I just look at it as an opportunity. Now that I don't have weddings for the next few months, it's kind of nice that I can invest this time into the back end of my business, seeing how I can make the client experience better, working on my studio, which I can't wait to show you guys more of. We actually renovated our whole main living room, so that way we could turn it into a studio where I'll shoot my clients, but also other photographers can book the studio and bring their own clients. So I'm really excited to just design it, to make it really beautiful, to furnish it. So that's a big project that we're working on. And then I really feel like I'm supposed to keep working on my YouTube, which is why I'm putting out more videos. And yeah, just giving you guys more content to watch and helping you guys learn. And so that's kind of what I feel to be doing right now, is just investing my time into this. There's probably 1,000 other stories that I could share with you guys, but that's kind of been my 10-year journey. 2 years just getting into photography, and then the last 8 years have been into wedding photography. So it's been a crazy journey so far. Photographed probably 130 weddings at this point. And now I'm only doing about 15 weddings, or 15 to 20 weddings per year, and probably next year I'll only be doing 10. So we'll see what happens, but I'm excited to keep doing this job. I really do love weddings, and what I've realized is that you need to keep yourself inspired over the years. So if you've been doing weddings for 5 years already, make sure that you're not only doing weddings. Make sure that you're doing shoots that also inspire you, that help you to stay creative, or else you will feel the burnout. And so whether that's even just doing a shoot with a beautiful couple where you've styled them, like I talked about in the previous video, it's really important to do shoots for yourself and that get you creative and inspired and help build your portfolio. So anyways, I hope that this video was encouraging to you guys. Just know that things do take time, that you will fail along the way, and if you aren't failing, then maybe you aren't stepping out and taking the risks that you should be for your business. Because it really is good for us to take those risks, to try new things, to invest money into our business and into ourselves, and it will pay off in the long run. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. If you guys have any questions, make sure to leave them below, and please make sure to subscribe so you can see more videos like this. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk soon.